Hello, hello, and welcome to the Hook 'em Hoops podcast, folks. We are a week away, under a week away now, from Texas opening the season in Las Vegas against Ohio State. Tommy Yarrish alongside Zach Davis and Jason Kinander. Fellas, time's here, man. It's finally here.
I shaved my beard. You guys made fun of me last week, so I'm back to looking like
Whoa,
I'm
wait,
out
wait,
of
wait, wait,
college.
wait. We never made fun of you. If anything, we said it looked good.
No, they did, but I got self-conscious, so I took
Okay.
it off. And now I'm getting ready for the season, trying to look clean and for Vic Schaefer, and of course Ronnie Terry.
Yeah,
So we've got a lot to get into.
uh-huh.
Let me touch on the beard really quick. You got to save the facial hair for November.
Facts.
Yeah,
Shave
that's
November. I haven't decided if I'm gonna do that yet. I don't know. It's kind of a lot of work, but
I think you pull it off terrific, by the way. It's it's a good look.
I did too. I thought so too until I looked like I was straight out of West Virginia last year when I covered Texas, Iowa State in Ames. Ugh, that was ugly. So anyway, we're gonna get right into today's predictions episode. This is the episode that I always look the most forward to of the few that we do in the offseason. I love talking transfers, coaches, whatever. But this predictions episode is what it's all about because we get to flaunt our knowledge and our preparation and what we think, and then at the end of the year, we get to see who was right. So we're going to start with Texas predictions. And we have a couple of good ones this year that we're going to incorporate into the show. So we're going to do Player of the Year, which is a wide open race this year. Last year, it was clearly going to be Max Abmas. This year, it's wide open race. X Factor, you can't really do Newcomer of the Year when everyone's a newcomer. How long Texas's season lasts, and one Texas-based hot take. So, Zach, why don't you start us off with your preseason Texas Player of the Year?
Yeah. I hate to be. It's got to be Trey Johnson. I'm gonna get it off my chest. Trey Johnson, and not only about Trey being the player of the year for this Texas team, but I think he's going to jump out of the gun with that title. I think we're going to see so many minutes from Trey. You look at a roster with so many good players. There's one dude on this team, and it's Trey. He's going to be a top. He's looking to be a top five pick. And we saw, he played over 30 minutes in the scrimmage this past week, and he mixed and matched with a lot of different with a lot of different starting fives or fives on the court. I think Trey Johnson is going to be the guy for Texas, and it's going to be one of those things that you're kind of doubting when March comes around. But again, we can get into that later. I just think Trey is going to be a huge factor.
Tommy?
Yeah, I'm with you, Zach. I don't know if I need to expand too much on that. Trey's the guy for me. I think when you look at how Rodney Terry built this team in the offseason, it looks to me, and you guys can disagree, but it looks to me like they built this team around Trey Johnson. I think it can function without Trey Johnson if he maybe takes some time to develop. But given what we've heard based off of the TCU and Colorado scrimmages, both of which Texas won, I think this kid's going to be the best player to come through Texas since Kevin Durant. So I think he lives up to that hype here in his freshman season.
I
Tommy,
said I said that on a show this offseason that the Texas staff thinks that they have their best freshman since KD, and I got laughed out of the Zoom meeting. Like, I think that he can. He's not my player of the year prediction, but Trey Johnson, because I don't have him for any of my bold predictions or anything here. I should say super quick, this guy is going to be in the middle of everything that Texas does this year. Like, without Trey
Absolutely.
Johnson having a big year doing what he's expected to do, this Texas team doesn't hit their ceiling. With that being said, my player of the year prediction for this year's Texas team is going to have to be Tremont Mark. Even though he only played a minute in the last scrimmage that they played against Colorado, apparently he had a rolled ankle. This is going to be the top scoring option this year, night in and night out. This is a guy who's done it before in the SEC, albeit he didn't win very many games last year at Arkansas. But I think we're going to get the Tremont Mark that we got at Houston, who is a strong defender, shot taker, shot maker, leader on the court and off the court. That's who Texas needs. And I think that's who they're going to get in Tremont Mark, a guy who can score at all three levels. He's done it before in two of the more difficult conferences in the country. And so that's who I'm really zeroing in on as my player of the year.
Am I crazy to think that Trey Johnson's a better scorer than Tremont Mark?
Maybe. I mean, if
I don't
he
think that's very far off. I think Trey Johnson's your number one option. Now, could this very well be a 1A, 1B situation? Absolutely. Because I'm not saying that Tremont Mark can't score the basketball. I mean, I watched him at Dickinson. He and two teammates combined for 84 of 86 points against a Made Creek team that had LJ Cryer and Eddie Lampkin. If you remember him, he's at Syracuse now, by the way. He dyed like his braids orange. I don't know if you guys saw that earlier this week. Um, but he's a damn good scorer. But Trey Johnson's just different, man. I mean, what we've heard about him and what we saw from him at Lake Highlands and Link Academy in his high school days, this kid can just hoop, and I'm really excited to see him play.
Let's go into our next topic, which is X Factor. I think that this is one where we're going to have three different answers. I'll lead off with mine, actually, and then we'll go to Zach and then Tommy. But I think that my X Factor for this year's team has to be Julian Larry. Julian Larry does all the little things that Texas maybe hasn't done so well in the past years. And he's the perfect complement to the guys who are probably going to be starting. So Jordan Pope is likely going to be the starting point guard right now. And while Jordan Pope is an electrifying scorer, he's not the best defender. He's not the best shot taker. He's not necessarily the best creator for his teammates. Those are the three best areas of Julian Larry's game. And for that, he's my X factor. Zach?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. You can go in so many directions with it. And I was thinking, at first I thought big man, and because this team, rebounding is such a big doubt. So for me, it was between Kaluma and Shedrick. And I just think Shedrick being a 6th-year senior returning for Texas, led the team in blocks last year. I just think he's going to not play a big role, but have to play a big role in this team because it's very small. There's a lot of guards, but when you look forward at the forward position, I should say, you look at Shedrick, you look at Kaluma, and Caden being the experienced guy. Uh, a few on this team returning, helping out with the rebounding part of this team.
Yeah, I promise Zach and I didn't collude our answers before this, but I'm with you. Last year I said that, this team goes as far as Tyrese Hunter takes them. This year it's as far as Caden Shedrick takes them. I mean, the thing that Texas was lacking last year was a firm interior presence who could play well defensively and get rebounds for you and also find a way to score in the post. I think Caden Shedrick can do most of those things when he's fully healthy. So if he's able to stay healthy for it doesn't even have to be all season. A majority of the season, if he's healthy in March and he's playing well in March, that's what's going to matter for this Texas team, and they go as far as he takes them with his play.
So our next topic here, this is probably the most dire question on the dais today, and that's how long is Texas's season going to last? Tommy, we're going to start with you first, but before you go first, I want to preface this by saying the consensus belief on this year's Texas team seems to be high ceiling, low floor. So I'm interested to see if anybody's season predictions go along with that. Tommy?
I think it's Sweet 16 team. It wouldn't surprise me if they were better, if they really meshed well and Trey Johnson is what we think he is. But I think I wouldn't say Sweet 16 is the floor of this team, but I also wouldn't say it's the ceiling. I think this is a team that could find a way into the Elite Eight. Zach and I were kind of talking about this before the show started. Rodney Terry and the narrative surrounding him, I think, has been so poor from Texas fans. I mean, you think about what this guy has done for you since Chris Beard left, much less taking over a team midway through the season when there's questions everywhere and you wonder about the psyche of your players and you take them all the way to the Elite Eight and then you come back the year after that with basically an entire new team and you get them to the round of 32 within 4 points of Tennessee, a team that is done so well in March under Rick Barnes. Well, I guess you could question that, but has played really well defensively and it wasn't a great matchup for him. They played him within 4 points. The job that he has done at Texas, I think, has been phenomenal. And I don't think enough people appreciate that. So I'll say that. And I think this is the year where Rodney Terry makes the Texas fan base appreciate what he's been able to do and how he's constructed this roster.
Great answer, Zach.
Yeah, Tommy and I did not talk about this before. I think they're a Sweet 16 team, and I like that's what I put down. I didn't put to go off what Tommy said. I didn't put Sweet 16. I said second weekend. I think they are capable of going to the Elite Eight. When you look at good, just overall basketball rosters that can go that far, it's depth, and that's something Texas has They have a lot of guys. And, you know, everybody eats, Jason. Everybody eats Tommy. That's the slogan for this team this year. Everybody eats. Tommy was spot on with this whole Rodney Terry vendetta, and me being in Austin, I'm seeing it firsthand and I'm not understanding it. Going to the Elite Eight in its own, taking over a team in the middle of the year is impressive beyond belief. And then for them to take Tennessee to a two possession game in the round of 32, who is a 2 seed, I just it's Rodney Terry has put together everything he could, him being his first year last year and still putting together that kind of season. I just think at Texas, in the best way possible, Texas fans are spoiled in their sports. The ceiling for football is a championship. The ceiling for women's basketball is a championship. Women's soccer is doing well. You look around all the sports, baseball, you coached, expectations are high. In basketball, you think the ceiling seems to be the lowest. You're living in the smallest apartment with Texas basketball, but everybody eats, Jason. Don't count them out.
Everybody eats. I love that mantra. And I think that after what, 4 straight off seasons of, rebuilding the roster and bringing in all these transfers, like it's nice that they're finally embracing the idea that like more than one guy is going to have to be the top option. I can't believe we're all going to agree here. I had Sweet 16, firm Sweet 16, no higher, no lower, because I think that there's a chance, and we'll get into this in our final Texas question. I think that Rodney Terry is going to do just enough in the eyes of the public to keep his job. Because this is a prove it year. Like, this is fully a prove it year. They don't have anybody signed in the 25 class. And, last year they made the round of 32. They probably could have beat Tennessee, but, they didn't. It's all that matters that they didn't. And then he took a roster that really wasn't his to the Elite Eight, and he did a great job coaching. But this is a prove it year. This is fully his team, his guys. Yeah, I've got firmly Sweet 16. I just think that there are too many vets to where like this, once you get to March, like these guys are going to want to win. And not a lot of these guys come from good teams. And yeah, that's going to be something that people are going to have their eyes on, and that we're going to Texas is going to really need to work on in the early part of the season. But with those guys not having March experience, when that March experience comes, they're going to want to hold on to it. We've got a lot of seniors on this year's Texas team who are going to want to crave that March experience. So Sweet 16 is my pick firmly after a lot of thinking, firmly. My last question, though, and I'll take the lead here because I've talked enough, so Zach's going to take the lead here. What is your one Texas-based hot take for this season?
I'm not even sure how hot it is really, but I'm just going to go out there and throw it out. Trey Johnson, all SEC, freshman of the year and second team All-American. He's in a spot to be able to do it. So I just think, when you're expected to get 30 minutes plus a game, it's hard to explain, but I think this is the year for Johnson to not only be such a stud at Texas, but really jump onto so high on the draft boards.
Wow. Tommy, any thoughts on that before you give your answer?
No, I mean, if Trey Johnson is what we think he is, I think this kind of segues into my hot take. Then I think he's going to be worthy of all those honors, if not more. I think Trey Johnson's a top 3 pick in the next year's draft. Yeah, I think he plays well enough to where scouts say, okay, yeah, this guy it translates to an NBA level. You think about how the NBA is nowadays with so much focus on scoring and, big guards who can score, big players who can score and create those mismatches on maybe smaller guards. And, Trey's whole brand is big guard you. And he is the embodiment of that, a big guard who can go and get a bucket. And so I think that he embodies that, and I think he gets rewarded with a top 3 pick in the draft.
I love it. Wow. Drinking the Trey Johnson Kool-Aid on this.
Yeah, we really are. I mean,
gonna live or die by the Trey ball this year. I love it. So my hot take, the head coach of this program, Texas basketball team, on April 15th, 2025, is going to be Scott Drew. I think that Rodney Terry and Texas will make the Sweet 16, but you need to look at the hiring power of this school. You need to look at what they've done in recent years. And bringing in Jim Schlossnagle in the baseball program, hiring Steve Sarkisian, maybe that wasn't a colossal hire, but this is the type of athletic program where when they're looking for a coach, they tend to look across the country, usually focus a little more locally, and they pick whoever they want, and they usually get them. And I think that they're going to be looking for an upgrade this spring after the NCAA tournament. I think Scott Drew, his daughter, graduates from Baylor this spring. He'll be looking to leave potentially, or a little less against the idea of uprooting his family and leaving. And Austin ain't too far from Waco, so that's my bold take.
I don't know about that. I mean, why would he leave? I understand Texas got deeper pockets, maybe, but you also, you question how much money really is going into the NIL program at Texas. Not that it's a little. I mean, Texas is the furthest thing from broke, but you know, I don't know. He's doing what he's doing at Baylor. He's recruiting how he's recruiting his Baylor. He's winning how he's winning at Baylor. I don't see the need. I don't see the logic behind it. That would seem like, and I'm not saying Texas has been like Baylor or anywhere near the last couple of years, but in terms of resources and what he'd have around him, I think that's a lateral move.
Hey, Jim Schlossnagle had a great year at A&M. It's I'm seeing where Jason's coming from.
I see it too. I see
I
it
see
too,
it.
and I see the big name
Also,
appeal. But if Rodney Terry takes you to the Sweet 16, why are you gonna not reward him for that?
that's the thing. I just think at Texas, the ceiling is a championship. That's why that's the only reason I could see that happening. I believe Sweet 16 I think is so impressive. But if they do have it somewhat of a shaky season if they're outside the top four um in the by March and then they're around 32 exit or maybe even still in the Sweet 16, I could see it. I definitely could.
Let's talk some SEC predictions now, guys. This is, in my opinion, the most loaded, not the best conference, but the most top to bottom loaded conference in the country this year. I could see a scenario in which not every team in the conference makes the tournament at the same time, but individually, I could see a scenario for each team making the tournament. And I can't say that for any of the other Power Five basketball conferences right now. So let's go right off the bat with the biggest prediction. Who's winning SEC Player of the Year? Tommy, I want to hear your take first.
I think it's an easy pick, and I think it's Mark Sears. What he was able to do for Alabama last year and just coming back with another year under his belt. He wants a championship. He's a championship level player, and I think he plays like it.
Zach?
Yep, I'll keep it simple as well. Mark Sears for Alabama. What he did last year in March and being able to come back is pretty rare to see these days. Keep it simple.
I got to go with John L. Davis. I have to admit, this is my favorite player in the country. I was so excited when he took his name out of the NBA draft. I was holding out that little sliver of hope that he'd maybe end up at Texas. And even though it didn't happen, he's at Arkansas. He is like the perfect John Calipari player. Like you see the clips of the NCAA tournament and player does something good, comes to timeout and Cal will give him a big hug. Like I can already see that with John L. Davis this year. He is going to play so well on offense, defense. Arkansas, they're a thin team, so he's going to get a whole lot of run. That's my player of the year pick in the SEC is Nelly Davis, friend of the field of 68 too.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. So next we got conference champs, right?
Conference champ. This is the hardest one in my opinion.
Conference champs. I don't know why my camera keeps turning off. Maybe that's for the better for our audience. But I'm sticking with the Crimson Tide. I think Nate Oates as they lost a lot in the transfer portal, but what they were able to get back, I think was equally as impressive. I think Grant Nelson took a step towards the end of last year, and that's kind of what I was waiting to see for this Alabama team. So I'm going with the Crimson Tide.
Zach?
Tommy, you got to stop going before me. I got to say, I'm staying in Tuscaloosa as well. SEC, as you said, Jason, is top to bottom, not far off from each other. I think you could easily give it to Auburn, Tennessee, Ole Miss as a dark horse. But yeah, Alabama, as you said, Mark Sears back. Grant Nelson took a step in the right direction. They brought in some good transfers. Omori had a great game in their exhibition. I'm blanking on the numbers he had, but this team looks deep. They look like what they had last year and, Final Four team last year. Why not run it back?
I like where you guys are coming from. So I have Alabama as a Final Four team. I don't have them winning the SEC because I think that Nate Oates might do things a little differently this year. They've already had some injuries preseason. I think that they're gonna maybe angle this team a little more towards March. They're gonna try and win every night, but I see this team with the veterans and some of the moving parts maybe as more of a two or even a 3 seed. My SEC champion prediction, I have not seen any media member pick this outside of the oh so biased local media where this team resides. I'm going with Texas A&M. I think that this team is going to be awesome this year. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I love basketball. I'm a basketball fan. I think that Texas A&M is going to be tons of fun to watch. They don't have a hole on their team. They have, in my opinion, one of the best players in the conference. This isn't a hot take, Wade Taylor. And their ads and their returnees were fantastic. Like Manny Obaseki played his best basketball down the stretch of last season. Anderson Garcia, fantastic defender, played his best basketball down the stretch. Henry Coleman played his best basketball down the stretch. And then they add Pharrell Payne. That's a huge, big presence in the paint, who's going to really help them with some of their rebounding woes. They also added CJ Wilcher, instantly becomes the best three-point shooter on their team, and Zurich Phelps, the do-it-all guard from SMU. I'm so excited as a Texas alum can be, to watch this Aggies team this year.
You know what? I'm glad you brought that up, Jason, because now we're going to go into our hot takes from the SEC. And my hot take is that Texas A&M is going to be the disappointment of the conference. I just don't see it with this team. You make great points, Jason. I know you know ball, and I'm not disputing that, but I am completely in disagreement with you. I love Wade Taylor. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he was great last year, and people piled onto him late just because he, took a bad shot. But he's a great player, great scorer. Buzz Williams is a fantastic coach. I don't see it with this team. I just don't. I don't see it with this team. And I think that, you look at some of the SEC teams coming in this year, I think that, Arkansas is better. I think Alabama's better. I think Florida's better. Auburn's better. I think Texas is better. Now, whether or not Texas will win that game, especially in College Station, just because of the environment that's going to happen. I mean, the one thing that I'll give College Station is when Texas comes to town, they're ready and they're always going to pack the house. And I know Texas does the same thing for A&M, but I think they're one of those schools that, and again, Aggie fans, don't crucify me for saying this, but I think they hate Texas more than they love themselves, if that makes sense. I think that's the case sometimes, but they're still a very passionate fan base, very good fan base. So I'm hopefully not going to get mauled on Twitter, but I don't see it with this team. I just don't.
Zach, your hot take?
My hot take is that Ole Miss, led by Chris Beard, will finish in the top 3 of the SEC standings.
Who's Chris Beard?
And here,
did he do anything notable in the Austin area, or
he brought in 4. I did my research. He brought in 4 4-star transfers. One including this kid, Malik Dia, who had 17 points per game at Belmont, and he had 31 points, I believe, in the scrimmage against Purdue, in which they beat Purdue. I know it's a scrimmage, it doesn't matter, but they shot 12 for 23 from 3. They're a shooting team, and when you have a coach like that, I just think in a regular season, because, in tournaments, stuff can happen, but in a regular season, consistency is where it's at. And with Chris Beard and what he did last year with Ole Miss in the non-conference schedule, one of the last undefeated teams left, given a second year here, I think Ole Miss is going to have a terrific season. Grab themselves a top 3 seed in the tournament and finish in the top 3 of the SEC.
I love it. I love it. That is like the bold. That's great, because I like what Chris Beard's building. Do you think that he could potentially be available for hire for Texas this offseason?
Oh my gosh. Could you imagine?
Well,
that would be, this podcast would do unbelievable numbers. And I mean, I think we already do great numbers, but that episode, home run.
I think I might be wrong, but last time I checked, the house is still for sale. So,
he's still paying for that? He's still paying the mortgage on that?
He can't get rid of it.
Oh my goodness. I wonder why.
That's great.
But if he were to come back, he could never, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm such a fan of him. I think he's one of the best coaches in the game, and given a second year at the program, anything can happen.
Wow. Well, I'm gonna go with something that I hope to be as bold as that, and this is the take that I hope to live or die by on Twitter this year, while being fair to the players, of course. I think Kentucky's a bubble team this year. I don't like that roster. I think that there are good enough players. There is not a number one option. Actually, there is a number one option on this roster. And the only issue is he hasn't played basketball in the last 2 years. And so I'm a big Colin Chandler guy. It's going to take him a while. I don't think he's going to redshirt this year. But let's talk about the 8 other transfers who they brought in, none of which played great basketball at their last stop. Lamont Butler's famous for the buzzer beater. That's great. Kobe Brea, just a shooter. He's a best 3-point shooter in the country. They need more out of him than that. And then you have like some absolute chaos agents here. Otega Owe and Jackson Robinson and Amari Williams. Good players on some nights, but again, chaos agents. And so I think on most nights, this Kentucky team is not a guaranteed win like they usually are in the SEC. And so as a result, I think that they will find themselves firmly on the bubble. I'm not ready to say they're going to miss the tournament, but I think that we're going to see Kentucky really regret letting go of Coach Cal. I know he left, but they let him go. And that's my prediction, is that this Kentucky team, they're going to be anywhere between a 9 and an 11 this year.
It's so hard to come in with just a whole new program. Calipari's been there for so long. Jason, you're like all money. I didn't really even think about that, to be honest. Hate to admit it, but I yeah, I 100% agree. And then I forgot to mention, because you mentioned Calipari, I had the bottom of my list too. Arkansas will be a round of 64 exit. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but
Man,
don't
that would be disappointing,
every
wouldn't it?
team that came in. And I also I like my hot takes, and Coach Cal hasn't done much in March lately. So I thought I would throw that in there.
That is awesome. That is awesome. All right, let's go into the last segment of our show. We saved the best for last. Our national college basketball predictions for this fall. Let's hear some Final Fours, guys. Whoever wants to go first, give us your 4 teams and finish with your national champion.
Oh boy. Well,
I'll start.
go ahead, Zach.
All
Go
right.
ahead. You got it. You
All
got
right.
it. You got it.
All right. I will. Okay. I'll go first. Kansas for obvious reasons. Duke for one reason. Cooper Flag. And then I threw in Creighton. I think that's a somewhat bold. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. Experience in March. And then who is my 4th team? Alabama. Mark Sears will be the best player in the country, or one of them, and proved it in March. Think he's going to do it again.
Who's the national champion out of there?
And out of that national champion, gonna have to give it to Duke. I think they're gonna have the. I know we're gonna get to it later, but I think they have the Player of the Year over there, John Shire. I just think they're due. I honestly think they're not really being talked about enough, with everything that's over there, and no UConn this year.
No UConn. Tommy?
All right. Well, my first team in is UConn. I'm gonna believe it until I don't see it with Dan Hurley. I got UConn. I'm fully with you on Cooper Flag. I think Flag goes number 1, Ace Bailey 2, and then Trey Johnson at 3 in the draft. He's gonna be so much fun to watch for Duke this year. And then I've got Alabama and Kansas. So, that's a very like easy layup Final Four. So it'll probably never happen, and I'll look like an idiot in March. But that's totally fine. I think my national champion. I think UConn gets it again. And I know it's boring. It's a boring pick, and the rosters are different from what Dan Hurley's had the last 3 in a row that he's won, but the way that he gets his players bought in and the way that they play on a night in, night out basis, I think translates to whoever it is on that roster. Like so many times we see college players making their teammates better. I think Danny Hurley is the rare exception where a coach makes his players that much better. Obviously, every coach makes their players better in certain aspects, but he makes them better that much to a point where they can be a championship contender each and every year. This team seems to be fully bought into him again, so I think UConn wins it all.
Wow. Repeat. That would I know that one of our bosses, Rob Doster, would be very happy about that.
Wait,
And
I thought I look like an idiot here. Did they win back to back or did they already three-peat?
no, this would be a three-peat. That would be a
Okay, this would
three-peat.
be
They
the
won back to
three-peat.
back.
Okay,
You're
well,
good.
they're winning so
You gotta
much.
get lost.
It's okay.
Yeah,
We're taking
I'm
off
lost in the
Rock.
championships, so
All right. Here are the 4 teams that are going to make the Final Four. Where is it this year, by the way? Zach, do you know?
San Antonio. I will be there. Final Four drive.
oh, well, hello, let's go.
All right. So the 4 teams that'll be joining you there, I've got Duke. I agree with you. Cooper Flag, awesome. He's going to get the Zion treatment this year, and he deserves every second of it. And people who complain about it hate people who are good at basketball. That's all I got to say. Creighton is my other Final Four team. I think that they're a little thin, but that starting 5 is great. They have the best big in the country in Ryan Kalkbrenner. We've seen how much that matters. Give me the Blue Jays as another Final Four team. Out of the SEC, I've got Tennessee. I think Rick Barnes finally breaks through with this 2 or 3 seed, makes the Final Four, and then retires. That's my dual prediction with Tennessee. I like their roster. I think that Chaz Lanier, the transfer from North Florida, I mean, if you could find Dalton Connect on the transfer portal for a second time, I think they did. Okay. My Final Four pick and my national championship pick. Thank God Texas is in the SEC now, because if I did this last year, I'd get massacred. But I'm going to have to go with Iowa State. I am such a big fan of what TJ Otzelberger is building in Ames. I think that this team is deep. I think that they return their 4 best players from last season. Well, I know that they returned their 4 best players from last season. And they added early and often in the portal. They knew what they wanted. They added every single player who they added, except for Nate Heist from Northern Iowa, was a plus defender at their last stop. So, you want to talk about guys who fit like a glove? TJ Otzelberger found 5 of them this offseason. It added them to an already really good team and system that teams in the country just haven't really been able to figure out. So, my national champion pick is the Iowa State Cyclones. And I'm excited about that too.
How about what a win for Schmedium Polos that's going to be with TJ Otzelberger. So if they win it all, can we get you in a Schmedium Polo to celebrate? I'd love to see that.
Yes. I'm trying to
I don't hate that pick. I don't hate that pick.
Yeah, I'm trying to put in a little more time in the gym to make those schmediums a little more snug. Right now they're still a little baggy on my lanky frame, but we'll have the wardrobe figured out by the end of basketball season.
There we go.
One thing that'll also be figured out at the end of basketball season is who our National Player of the Year is. And Tommy, I'm curious. We kind of got a sneak preview of Zach, so we'll hold off on his for a second. Tommy, I want to hear who your pick is.
All right, well, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone here because I think my player of the year is also my national hot take. I'd be shocked if this isn't the hottest take that we've got, and I fully believe it. Let's take a bus, fellas, and let's drive over to Memphis, Tennessee, and we're going to knock on Penny Hardaway's door, and he's going to bring PJ Haggerty into the fold for us. PJ Haggerty is your National Player of the Year. I'm fully bought into it. He is a phenomenal scorer. Will Memphis be an elite team? Not necessarily, I don't think. They might struggle a little bit. I think they're a tournament team. But PJ Haggerty is going to put on the biggest carry we have ever seen in college basketball. Okay, maybe not that far, but he's going to put on so much of a carry that I think he wins Player of the Year. This kid is one of the best scorers of the basketball that I have ever seen. And so some of the numbers that I think he is going to put up is going to make you have to do a triple take at the stat sheet every night. And I think that has a big part in Player of the Year. So give me PJ Haggerty from Memphis. Former TCU Horned Frog, taking the country by storm this season.
That's hot. That's hot.
I know it's hot.
Take. That's a hot take.
Hey, I've got the oven mitts on. I'm fully on board.
Zach, let's hear your Cooper Flag soliloquy.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty brief because I can't, I don't have the stats really to back it up. There's no college stats, and but I'm gonna root for it. Um, I think Cooper Flag is such a special talent, something college basketball really hasn't seen what he can do with his size and frame and still shoot the rock. Yeah, I mean, this we're talking about your future first round pick, first overall pick, excuse me, in the draft at the same time back in college basketball, which we haven't seen in a little bit. So, um, yeah, I think Cooper's your guy this year. I think he's going to be turning a lot of heads. I think he's going to help a lot as well.
Wow. Cooper Flag. If that happens, I'll be excited about it. Like I appreciate the goats. I'm not calling Cooper Flag one of the goats just yet. But I'll be excited about it. I'll be happy about it if that happens. My national player of the year. This is one that I went so back and forth on because I think it's a really open race. I like Mark Sears. I didn't consider PJ Haggerty, but maybe I should have. I
You should
considered
have.
Cooper Flag. Um, my national player of the year is Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think that he's the best defensive player in the country. I think everything that Creighton does on offense is going to go through him. They have scorers, Stephen Ashworth, Mason Miller, Pop Isaacs, but Ryan Kalkbrenner is going to be the center of everything. I think we're going to see the closest thing, honestly, to Zach Edey at Purdue. I'm not going to say he's going to be their entire offense, but I think they're going to feed him in the post a lot, and I think that his usage rate is going to be so high that it drives everybody whose team plays against Creighton like absolutely crazy. And so Ryan Kalkbrenner is my national player of the year, a beneficiary of the COVID year, if you will. So our last segment here, let me find it. Oh, Tommy already got to it. It's our
Yeah.
national hot take. So Tommy already went. Zach, let's hear your national hot take. I'm excited for this one.
I'm I'm almost embarrassed to say it after what Tommy said. Okay. UConn does not leave the first weekend. They experience March like all men. They shocked in the round of 32 and they go home early. I know it's ridiculous, but they lost 4 starters. They bring in Mahani from St. Mary's, Reed from Michigan, and they have who's the kid? McNeely, stud.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong, this is a great roster, but they lost 4 starters, man. And to like the reason they went back to back is because they not only held on to the guys they had, but they won it in the first place. And it's everyone comes to March eventually, and I think madness is gonna hit Hurley, which I'm not happy to say about it. I think Hurley's already one of the best coaches college basketball has ever seen, but I just it's their time.
All right, my national hot take. I promise I'm not obsessed with the coaching carousel because I know that this will be my actually third hot take that has to do with it. I'm going to say that Mark Few walks away from Gonzaga after this year, and that Tom walks away from Gonzaga, not necessarily retires, but I think that this is his best roster that he's ever had at Gonzaga, and I don't think they're going to win a national championship. And so I think that he's finally going to realize that you can't win one there. Um, and then Tom Izzo's going to retire. I think that when Tony Bennett hung up his clipboard, what have you, I think that kind of showed everybody in the coaching world like you can walk away and it's fine, like these kids will be fine. And especially in today's college basketball, guys want to leave it to their staffs. Gonzaga has already named their next in waiting. They named it last year, which I thought was bizarre. Bizarre timing. The name's leaving me right now, but they named their head coach in waiting last year. And then Tom is, though, he'll never admit when he's close to retirement, but he's the oldest of the legendary coaches left. He hasn't been hitting the recruiting trail nearly as hard. He tried his hand at the transfer portal this summer. We'll see how it works out, but I think that Mark Few might have a new home after this year, and Tom Izzo is going to be spending more time at home this year.
That was a bar.
I
Well
I
done.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the kind of Tom Izzo's generation is kind of worn out that way of basketball. Michigan State hasn't done much in a while, and in a world where every athlete has a agent in between him and the coach, and then And then Tom Izzo having such a big one of his big things about coaching is being connected to the players and that it being more disconnected than ever. Yeah. I Jason, you're right. I can see it.
Tommy, any parting thoughts before I sign us off?
Really happy the basketball season's here. I think Texas beats Ohio State 81-69.
So we'll probably do a preview episode. I hope we'll definitely talk about the game after it happens. But yeah, you know what? I'll say that Texas is going to beat Ohio State too. I think Jake Diebler is a good coach, but that roster is going to be fun in February. Right now,
Yeah,
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah,
and I think that Texas will expose that big tandem of Bradshaw and Stewart. They're not ready yet. Zach, what do you think about that game?
Yeah, I wanted to go, but it got shut down by the old man. I think
Come on,
yeah,
Seth. What are we doing?
I know. For
Come
real. It was gonna
on.
be a fun weekend. I was gonna hang out with my Ohio State friend and I was gonna watch his team lose. In Vegas too. Would have been good golf over there. Still 20. So, can't really
Yeah,
enjoy
good golf.
it.
It's got to stick to golf.
Good advice from Dad.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Texas does win. I think it'll be a little close. I think it's going to be a hard game to watch. Um, I think Ohio State's going to bring the energy, neutral site. But yeah, I think Texas will win probably around double digits. Could see it dipping a little under, but it'll probably be 4 possessions ish.
I agree with that. I think it'll be a close game. All right, guys. Well, that'll do it for this year's predictions episode. Tommy and Zach, thank you for joining me. To our viewers at home, thank you for joining us. Be sure to follow our podcast Twitter account and our personal Twitter accounts for more of our own coverage. We are super excited about this basketball season. A big thank you to Jeff Goodman, Rob Doster, everybody at the Field of 68 for bringing us back for another go around and helping make this show possible. It's a great outlet to talk basketball. That's what the three of us love to do. And we're excited to share it with you for what should be another exciting season of Texas basketball. That'll do it for Hook 'em Hoops.